I'd had really debilitating anxiety and some depression, but mostly anxiety for about a decade. It got so bad at times where I literally couldn't leave the house. It was incapacitating. I couldn't function. And I was on medication for a year, and it felt like I wasn't supposed to be on it. And I didn't understand why. I was like, I can function on medication, but and then I stopped and I was getting anxiety again. And I did everything I could to do it naturally. And I spent thousands and thousands of dollars and saw doctors and, did everything I could at the time. And I finally reached a point where I was just at the absolute end.
Hi, and welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Ron Strand. I'm glad that you're joining us today. If you didn't get to watch our last segment of the interview with Man of Leisure, do yourself a favor and go back and watch it. Because today we're going to be interviewing one half of Man of Leisure, a fellow by the name of Barrett Johnson. And Barrett is an accomplished songwriter, singer, artist, all-around great guy. But what we're going to do with Barrett today is not so much get into his music, but we're going to get into his story, his life, his testimony, the struggles that he's had. And what I really like about Barrett's story is it's a real story. It's a story of a man of faith who has struggled through different things. And, I think sometimes we kind of dress Christianity up as Pollyanna, like everything's going to be great. But the reality is we go through struggles. And that's what we want to talk about today. Not so much the struggles, but the hope that's come out of it. But, we need to hear what the struggles are as well. So, Barrett, welcome to Real Talk. Welcome back, I should say, to Real Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about your background, particularly your musical background and what you've done. And just as a recap for folks, you tell us just a little bit, a nutshell of your musical background.
I would say my musical background started in my grandfather's loft when I was in grade school. My older brother played for me 3 songs that completely changed my life. And he played for me Paul Simon and Creedence Clearwater. And in my house, music was actually forbidden, and so I heard these songs when I was probably in 4th or 5th grade, and it literally changed the direction of my life for music.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard a couple of songs that I was like, wow, this is it for me. I love this, and I just...
Well, that's a great jumping off point about music being forbidden in your house, because I want to delve into that. But just before we do you remember the 3 songs by Creedence and Paul Simon?
Mrs. Robinson, and I remember Down on the Corner.
Yeah.
The Creedence song, and I think he played me a Dylan song too, but I mean this was a while ago, but I remember listening to those songs and I was just I couldn't believe it. I wanted to hear him immediately again after he played him for me. Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah, I was lucky to have an older brother that introduced me to music.
So this was your older brother that played this stuff,
mm-hmm.
Right?
He's a musician as well. My whole family is. All my siblings are, yeah.
And how interesting that you say that, and you say that music was forbidden in your household.
Listening to music.
Listening to music.
Not music itself, but listening to different bands was...
All right, well, let's jump in right there, and we'll get into that. But, all right, so tell us a little bit. You grew up here in Orange County?
I did, in Irvine.
Mm-hmm. And... tell us a little bit about your family life.
Yeah, I have 5 brothers and sisters, raised in Irvine, and I went to a private Christian school. Went to Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa from kindergarten through high school.
All the way through.
All the way through. Didn't want to go to high school. Was forced to.
Is that right?
Yeah. But went the entire way there, and like I said early on, I was very drawn to music. And then when everybody in my family plays something, all the kids, I should say, plays an instrument, including my younger brother who's autistic played piano. Like everyone played something. And so I'm actually not, my younger brothers are better players than I am.
Really?
So, yeah. Uh-huh.
So listening to music was forbidden, but not playing of music.
No.
So it was encouraged, it sounds like.
Piano was encouraged. Strangely enough, guitar was not as encouraged.
So is this something of a kind of a Christian, or I wouldn't say Christian, but a, what's the word? Why? Let me just ask this way. Why was it forbidden to listen to music?
I don't know, other than I think that the film Hell's Bells didn't help anything. I don't know if you remember that from maybe the 80s.
I remember the name of it. I don't remember the movie.
Yeah, it was a lot of the what is it? The backwards masking stuff where, I still can't hear it when they're doing it, but that I remember that being a pretty significant thing that, I mean, even at the time as a kid, I thought it was comedy. I just like, what is this? But
so it was more about the influence of outside music. Now, is this both your parents that were this way, or
my father?
Your father. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think my mom cared as much.
Yeah.
I don't think she knew as much.
And was your father a man of faith?
My parents went to church.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to say what.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's obviously a story in there as well.
Sure.
And so, did you grow up in an intact home? Were your parents together?
Yeah, they're not anymore. But
not anymore.
Yeah, they were when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Until I was an adult.
So, what was that feeling? I mean, and because I want to get into, you've had some significant losses. You've struggled with some health issues that continue to today.
Yep.
And obviously you've had some victories through some of these things.
Yep.
But those early years, we talk about how they influence our whole life, Were they happy years? Were they good years for you?
Yeah, I think so. Growing up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that they're pretty happy. I mean, we lived in a pretty safe city,
sure.
and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say for the most part, I liked my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so music, you started at once your brother played you that music.
That was it.
That was it.
Yep.
And did you just start? What age was this again?
Right around 4th or 5th grade, and I could not stop listening to Bob Dylan and Paul Simon. Especially Dylan.
Yeah.
Always attracted to lyrics.
Yeah.
Lyrics and songwriters that were telling stories. Always.
Right.
Yep.
So you've got 5 siblings or 5 children in the house.
6 total.
6 total.
Including
and where do
me.
you fall there?
Third. Yeah, older brother, older sister, younger sister, 2 younger brothers.
Let's talk about some of the losses because I know, just in the time I've known you, I know you lost your sister. Talk about that if you can.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I lost my younger sister. We were actually, I was the closest probably to her in the family. We've always spent a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And
what was her name?
Melody. And I lost Melody and one of my nieces, twin niece, and her sister was also she was the only survivor of a car crash.
Did they die together?
They did.
Oh, your sister and your niece
and my
at
niece.
the same time.
Yep, my niece that I helped raise the first few years of her life.
Wow.
Yep, lost them 2 years ago, coming up this March, and to a drunk driver up in Montana. They were coming back from a birthday party. And so I got the call in the middle of the night from my brother-in-law, and it's devastating. Just you just don't think, you just don't think it's going to happen. But and then a few months later, then after that, that was, it's still hard to, it's never going to be, it's never going to, But a couple months later, I lost my youngest brother, who was autistic, and we still don't know exactly how he died. But he died in like a group home he was living in.
Oh my gosh! Now, how old was he when he died?
35.
Oh, 35. Mm-hmm. And your sister was how old?
43, I think, at the time. 40. Yeah, early 40s.
Wow. That's a lot of loss in 1 year.
Yep.
Yeah. And how did that affect your mental health? What?
So one of the things that I've had for quite some time is I actually, if you want to say God, that's the word I use for God. I've gotten dreams and different things since I was younger of things that would happen. And a year before my sister passed, I actually had a dream. And it was my grandmother in the dream, but I actually, I knew it represented somebody in my family that was going to die. And I was like, is it my grandmother? Because she was like 95. And she ended up passing right around that time too. But there was something to that. And then a year later it happened.
Wow.
And that's happened to me a few times where I've had either like, call it, I don't know what you want to call it, but I've had either actual dreams or visions of something happening, and then they do.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about your faith.
Sure.
You grew up, obviously you went to a Christian school
I
at
did.
Calvary Chapel, very focused, faith-based, fundamental, not fundamental, but conservative.
Fundamental.
I guess you'd say, yeah, well, fundamental, I think I get a different vision in my head. But
Okay.
I mean, Chuck Smith, I sat under Chuck Smith and got my early teaching, and it was a
Sure.
solid Bible teacher.
Sure.
I think maybe more, I would say the word conservative faith. But
Yeah.
so how does that influence your life, and where is your faith, and how did that come about?
Yeah. I would say that when I believed in God when I went to school, but I really didn't have much interest in, because it was, you go to your chapel every Monday, and I didn't want to go there for high school. I just didn't really want to go. I had great friends there that I still have today, which I'm thankful for, but I just didn't really want to go to school there. I mean, obviously, I'm fortunate to be able to go somewhere nice like that, but I also didn't care for, at the time, it was just like, I don't want to go to chapel. I didn't want to do any of it.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of after school that is really when I started having experiences with God, things that I absolutely cannot explain any other way, that completely changed my worldview and my understanding of the divine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
I would say one of the most clear ones was I had, it's still hard for me to talk about. I'd had really debilitating anxiety and some depression, but mostly anxiety for about a decade. And it got so bad at times where I was, I literally couldn't leave the house. It was incapacitating. I couldn't function. And I was on medication for a year, and it felt like I wasn't supposed to be on it, and I didn't understand why. I was like, I can function on medication, but and then I stopped, and I was getting anxiety again, and I did everything I could to do it naturally, and I spent thousands and thousands of dollars and saw doctors and, did everything I could at the time, and nothing was working. And I finally reached a point where I was just at the absolute end.
So the anxiety, because it's a very real, and it's an organic thing that a lot of people suffer through, anxiety. But it wasn't something that was consistent through your life. Did you develop this anxiety later as a young adult? Or?
Yeah, I would say more so in my late 20s.
Yeah.
But I mean, really debilitating. People call them panic attacks. Call it what you want, where you just have moments where. And it really affects you where, I mean, when I hear people say, oh man, I really have anxiety, and like the way they talk about it, I'm like, that's not a person who, when you talk to someone, whether or not they really experience it, because they drive in the slow lane on the freeway because they have to pull off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they can't travel because they have panic attacks, and they won't hang out, and they'll say they don't feel well. And you'll be like, I think they are dealing with, anxiety. And so, I reached a point where I was at a friend's house, and I didn't leave the house for probably a month or two. And I was sick at the time, which made it worse. And he was coming home and bringing me food. I have a really close friend. His name is Ralph, and he's like a brother to me. And he was just helping me at the time. And I told him, I'm like, I can't function this way. I got to get back on medication. And everything I was trying, not that I think medication is bad for some people. You have to do what you have to do, but I just knew it wasn't right for me. And I was like, well, I guess I have to do this again. Was
the medication helping?
It did before, a few years before, but it also, I mean, there's obviously changes when you do that. And I just felt like for me, it wasn't right. And I can't explain that. And, like I said, I reached the point where I thought there was, I couldn't do this anymore. It was suggested to me that, why don't you have some friends pray for you before you do this and stuff. I'm like, people have prayed for me before. This isn't, anything new. Mm-hmm. And a few people did come over, and I was I think this is kind of funny that I was actually in the bathroom peeing while this experience happened.
Okay. While they were praying for you?
No, before. So they come over for this, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna use the restroom, and I'm in there literally peeing, and I have a God experience that to this day, I mean, you can't explain it any other way. Where I was spoken to, and it was a thought that wasn't my own thought. I don't know how to explain it, but it was spoken to me, and it was, "Do you want to be released of this?" And I just started crying.
Wow.
And I was like, yes.
So you actually heard an audible voice or just an impression in you that said, "Do you want to be released of this?"
Yep. And I haven't had one since.
Seriously, that was the end of the anxiety. And it just went away like that. It was just basically saying, "Yes, I want to be released of it." Wow. How long ago was that?
It's almost 10 years to the day today.
Really?
It's right after the new year.
Yeah.
And I haven't had one since.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. And so you walk back out, and these folks are there to pray for you. Do you tell them? I mean, did you know right then that you were healed of it, or just?
You know what? I didn't know right then, because there's certain things that were triggering to it, and soon after, I think I was traveling for music, and traveling was always a trigger for anxiety.
Yeah, that's gotta
always
be murder. Sure,
it was not easy, and I went traveling, and I wasn't getting anxiety, and then I got sick, which was also a trigger for anxiety, and I wasn't getting it, and I was like, maybe this thing's really happening, and I haven't had any kind of anxiety since.
And no medication for it.
No medication.
Wow.
And
you got a real healing.
I did.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it any other way.
Wow.
And, since then, since I've gone through other health challenges, I know so much more. And, I've had friends reach out. Hey, I've got people in my family that, and I actually have, things to tell them. Hey, have you tried this? Have you, there's a lot of things to try. It's very complex. And, there's lifestyle changes that you can make
Sure.
to try to help this.
Right.
But for me, I had that experience where I've said this before, I felt like I was drowning, and I was just pulled out of a river.
Yeah.
So
let's go back to that bathroom scenario, if we can. Not the scenario, but the moment that you felt God speak to you like that. What was the posture of your heart at that point? I mean, were you seeking? No faith?
None.
Really?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's funny too, because I would call myself a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I would say, and his teachings, and he was always like, "Your faith has made you well," right? And that's a strange thing to say. He said that a lot.
Yes.
And usually that could be a part of what is going on with people getting healed. You could think, well, there's things that I've even experienced since then that you can have limbic system retraining and different things that you can, help your body. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is I had no faith at the time. None. I was like, this is it. It's over.
So what did that do to your faith?
It helped.
It helped. I would say so. So, I mean, it's life-changing thing happens to you because
it is.
This major debilitating thing that you had for 10 years is instantly healed.
Yep.
And it's as a result of you hearing God say to you, "Do you want to be healed of this, or do you want to be released from this?"
Yes.
And so how does that change you? I mean, you had to be walking out and shouting in the streets. I mean, what was the feeling?
I mean, I'll never forget it, and I will always be thankful, even with the other health challenges I've gone through. Yeah. I will always be thankful for that, because people when I meet someone who's struggling with this, I absolutely have so much empathy for them.
That's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have that empathy.
Yeah, it is.
Because so much, and in the church, not all elements, but there's a large element in the church that looks down upon, I don't know if you'd call that mental illness or mental challenges or emotional,
sure.
Whatever it is, it's all part of the psyche, right?
Sure.
But there's a part of the church that just looks dimly on that. It's like, well, you're not praying enough, or you're not reading your Bible enough, or whatever it might be. But it's a real struggle. I mean, it's...
And you know what you remember? It doesn't matter what people say. You remember the people that actually help you during those times.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Those are the people that actually care.
Yeah.
When you have nothing to give, and they are willing to be there with you in that.
Yeah. Well, and I think the reason I stress that is because folks in the church, there's people in the church that struggle through these things.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it be anxiety, whether it be depression, whether it be, hearing voices, whatever. These are real organic issues that we struggle in our fallen state.
Sure.
And rather than taking a dim view on that, or saying that, well, you're just not praying enough, that there's help out there. There's and you got it miraculously. Mm-hmm. God healed you. Mm-hmm. The power of healing power of Jesus, his healing virtue healed you. But there's also organic things that help people too, that I think there's a stigma sometimes in the church about, as you talked about, meds weren't for you, but there is that available for people too.
Sure. I think healing has complete. I think what you were asking, what's changed for me the most is my understanding of healing because of some of the other health challenges I've had. I think healing itself, people see, if you believe in the Gospels and you believe what was written about Jesus, that there were people that were just like in my situation, pulled out of this, these diseases and what they were dealing with. That is one way to get healed, but I don't think that's the only way to get healed, because
that's right.
Because I've also been in other situations, in health situations, that now my understanding of healing is different.
Right. And we know from the scripture, Jesus didn't heal everybody, but he did choose to heal certain people. And for some reason, unbeknownst to us, until you get to be face to face with him, you don't know why that is. But you've talked about other health challenges that you have. Talk a little bit about what you.
Yeah. So a few years after that, I had, I woke up one morning and I literally fell over, and the world was just spinning, and I was like, what is going on with me? And I had no idea, the first thought is, am I having a stroke? What is going on with me? And I tilt my head up, and the world's spinning so violently, and I'm like, okay, I have vertigo. There's something I'm thinking there's something, I need to go to the doctor, to the hospital. And, unfortunately, the advice that I had gotten was not. At the time I was in a pretty vulnerable situation, and I went along without looking into something more, and I ended up doing some movements with a physical therapist that actually made it 10 times worse.
Oh man!
And so I think it was just a misdiagnosis of what type of vertigo I had, and I ended up having it for a year and a half. And so I was dizzy. I did not have a moment's rest from dizziness for a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
And so the first 6 months of it, again, I couldn't do anything. I was like,
Are you just bedridden? I mean, are you just...
For the first 6 months, I pretty much was.
Wow.
Which just going to, shower, bathroom, and then literally like this with your arms out, like, because you feel like you're going to run into the wall. You don't, it feels like you're on a ship constantly. Yeah. And, about 6 months in, because I'd been healed before, and I'm like, well, why don't you heal me? Because I'm in absolute misery. Yeah. And I heard nothing at all. And about 6 months in, I was living really unhealthy at the time.
What does that mean? I mean,
eating terribly.
Okay. Not drugs or anything like that.
No drugs, but just fast food, constant, not taking care of myself at all. Right. No exercise, nothing. And 70 pounds overweight, maybe, and just not taking care of myself. And I had, I started realizing 6 months in, I was like, maybe I can do something to help this. And I started looking into, different health protocols, different diets, different things. And I started changing a few different things. I was like, you know what? I can't be this way for the rest of my life, because I was scared I was going to be dizzy forever.
Yeah.
And so I started making some changes and feeling a little bit better. And I got referred to a chiropractor that I also thought, I had never been to a chiropractor before, and I just thought it was ridiculous. But I'm not saying chiropractic is ridiculous. I'm saying getting help from a chiropractor for, this, I just thought that's not going to help me.
Right.
And the way that the circumstances worked out, I had a friend who literally paid for a year of this in advance,
Wow,
which
that's a
was
good friend.
It was amazing. And I was like, maybe I'm supposed to be doing this. And these people walked me through this entire thing, and it probably did help the chiropractic, but I think it was being walked through changing of the lifestyle in this case that was really the more of the healing process with this. And so I kind of look at this first healing I had was I was just pulled out of this thing that I could not get out of myself. And the second thing that I've gone through, I feel like it was more of a having somebody walk you through and helping you through, learning some lifestyle, because there are protocols, there are lifestyle changes. I think our bodies are made to heal given the right circumstances.
Sure.
And so we also have choices of whether or not we want to, go down certain roads.
Right.
So,
well, did you ever find the root cause of the vertigo? And when did it go away? I mean, when you did the health, the nutritional changes?
it was slow.
Was it?
It was a year and a half. So, I mean, it was like I still had it. It just was less and less and less and less. And the root cause, I think, was a virus, because I felt fluish the day before, and I feel like it was some kind of virus with my inner ear.
Yeah.
And it made it 10 times worse doing these fast movements that I was doing at physical therapy. It just made it 10 times worse.
Right.
So I learned a lot through that one.
And so your health journey, you discovered some deficiencies, or what would you call them? Allergies, or what would you got a pretty limited health protocol. Or,
that was an entirely
nutritional protocol.
Is what I'd call is my third thing that I've and that was about 5 years ago, actually, right around this time too. I usually don't take a lot of antibiotics, and I did because I had an infection, and it completely turned my health upside down again. And so this is the third thing that I've gone through in the last 15 years or so that I don't even know how to explain. And this one's been quite the journey.
This is the journey.
It's been quite the journey.
Yeah.
And right after I took the antibiotic, I started having autoimmune issues that were so severe that I love dogs, love being around dogs. I can't touch animals, and I still can't touch dogs. Otherwise I'd be literally sick in bed for 3 days if I touched an animal. And if I ate the wrong food, I'd be in bed for 5 days. I mean, with the most horrific symptoms. I used to think that there was, that the level of nausea was like, when you feel like you got to throw up, that's the worst nausea you can have. That is nothing compared.
Doesn't even come close.
Nope. Nothing compared to what I've experienced with this situation. And what this one has done for me is it's made me think about healing in a different way too, because I feel like, this one, I don't feel like I've had a lot of help until recently, but I feel like I've done nothing but study and listen to podcasts and read books and start looking at what do I actually think is healthy. What is health? If you ask everybody what they think about that, you're going to have different answers of what people think are the pillars of health and what is our design. And so I started diving into all these areas, like what are we supposed to be doing that's built into our biology that we've been doing since the beginning of man.
Yeah.
The things that are given to us.
Right.
And I think the frustrating part of that is thinking that one thing was going to be the cure-all, that thinking I'm going to find the protocol, it's going to fix me. And it hasn't been. It's been many protocols, and maybe one's going to give you 5%, and maybe one's going to give you a little more, maybe 10.
Yeah.
But I've found some things that have really helped. I have expanded the food I've been able to eat. I mean, for 3 years, it was literally 5 foods.
Yeah.
And that was it. I couldn't eat anything else.
What were those 5 foods?
It was carrots, apples, bacon, chicken, and almonds.
And
That was it. If I ate anything outside of those, I'd get super sick.
Wow. But now you're able to add some of these other
I can
things
eat
back.
more fruit. I can eat avocados and a few more things. I can eat egg yolks, which is huge. And man, you start becoming really thankful for the things that you couldn't enjoy before.
Do.
Yeah,
I bet you really do.
And still can't eat, certain things. I can eat a little bit of fish, which is good, but I mean, still working on this. Still been quite the health journey.
So Barrett, you're a man who's recently married, and now you have just a week or so ago, a child, your first child.
Yep.
How does that play? How do those dietary restrictions play into family life? Because your wife has had children from a previous marriage, and you're helping to raise those children as well, right?
Yep.
So you've got a family, an automatic family, and your own flesh and blood now with a new child. And so how do those dietary restrictions affect family life?
I guess as far as it doesn't affect anybody else, they eat whatever they want to.
Yeah.
But as far as
there's no like cross-contamination in the house or anything like that where they can't have this or that.
No. And I'm trying to find the balance of, because it's easy to project when it's like, hey, you keep eating this stuff, you could run into problems down the road. And I'm trying to think with my own son, what do I want to do to, because you don't want them to go down a road that you went down. But I also, it's like, it's a tough one.
Yeah, I can't imagine that, because did you ever get mad at God? I mean,
I still get mad at God. I get mad at God all the time. And then he'll say something to me, and
yeah, okay, I get you. But I mean, you've kind of got I guess you would call it the trifecta, right? You get first of all anxiety, crippling anxiety, and then you get vertigo for a year and a half, and now you've got these dietary things that you're
autoimmune,
autoimmune issues, and a lot of people would just say, God, why are you doing this to me? Because
I feel like there's going to come a day where I feel like I am going to be able to pet dogs again.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to come a day that I am going to be able to eat meat again, a steak. I just want a steak.
Yeah.
Like it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
And I do feel like that I don't know when, but I do feel like that day's coming. And I feel like this is another healing. And I'm learning that I don't think that most people can see that, because I do feel like there is a path. And I feel like I want to help other people too on their path. I'll have friends call me, I've got some autoimmune issues, what should I do?
Sure.
It's like, well, I've already been down this road, and
right.
I can make this so much faster for somebody else to point them in another direction, because there's things that have worked for a lot of people that, that maybe somebody hasn't heard of,
Well, I think, and we know as believers that, as the scripture says, all things work together for good for those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. Nothing goes to waste in God's economy. What have you learned from these struggles in your life? What are your takeaways?
I would say, I'm still going through it.
Sure.
But I would say, so far, what I've learned is I do believe that there is some kind of path for people that are struggling with health issues, that there's some kind of path to at least feel a little bit better. I really believe that that's how we're designed. And I know that there are things that people have that they had nothing to do with. It wasn't their lifestyle that caused this. It could be environment. It could be a lot of things that human beings have done to, we've made mistakes
Sure.
that we're reaping the consequences for.
Right.
But I do feel like there's still things that are built into us that, if you want to take off your shoes and go stand in nature, you're going to feel better. I don't care how sick you are. That's just, you can do a study on it, because I've seen the studies, but you don't need a study. You just go out there and do it, and you'll feel better. Right. But then, you start looking into, sunlight and how important it is, fasting, like the environment, like toxicity. There's all kinds of, different protocols that people can do no matter what they're dealing with. That I think I want to be involved with that.
Yeah. So you've had to do some deep dives to learn all these things and and adjust to a lifestyle that's got these challenges. Yeah. 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 Incredible. So how does it feel to be a father?
I'm really excited. I really am. Oh, I hope he's going to be a songwriter someday already.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
What did you get? What did you name him?
Bear. Yeah, B-E-A-R.
B-E-A-R. Mm-hmm. Great name.
Yeah.
Great name. Barrett. Barrett Johnson.
Yeah. Barrett Johnson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, Barrett, thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
I think a lot of folks can take away something from this, because as I said at the outset, we all struggle with different things. We're not exempt from struggles in life, and that's part of the fallen state. But and folks, if you're watching, well, let me ask you this: is there any, for people that might be struggling through some of the autoimmune issues, is there any particular sites that you've come upon that might help folks to?
Yeah, I would say it's a complex one because there's all kinds of autoimmune issues.
Yeah, sure.
But I would say that. And I wasn't working with any physicians of any kind before. And I do feel like, integrative and functional medicine physicians have really helped me a lot, because it's not just like a Western medicine thing of, there's protocols and there's things to try that I would have never thought a doctor would ever say.
Right.
But some of the ones that have helped me that I think can work across the board, that I would say, I hesitate to ever, because it's never medical advice, right? It's just, this is what's worked for me.
Right.
But I would say that somebody should definitely look into fasting if they have autoimmune issues. It's been extremely powerful. And the more you dive into that and the more you start researching that, you start realizing that we have built into our bodies, a mechanism that does cellular cleanup, and it really affects your gut, and it really makes a change. And I've done a few 72, 48 hour. Every time I get sick, I stop eating.
Just a complete fasting, just water. Just drinking
that's
water.
it. And you can do things in addition to that to make it a little easier, with minerals and like salt and different things. But just water, and you have to build up to it, and that's a big one.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's other protocols too. It's too much to get into today. But I would definitely say there's quite a few that seem to work for a lot of people. I mean, there's been complete reversals I've read in, with some of these different physicians who do this on a regular basis. I'm trying to remember his last name. There's one doctor that really has done extensive research on this specifically, but I've read a lot of books on this. Is it Jason Fung? I think it's Dr. Jason Fung. And he has a book on fasting, and there's quite a few examples that they've given of people that have had complete reversals of their autoimmune issues if they can get up to a 3 to 5 day fast, which seems like it's a lot, but once you start fasting after about day 2, it's about the same.
Yeah.
And so that's something I would definitely say for people to look into.
Wow. Good advice. Well, there's a lot out there, and I think society now is coming to, because I think there's a lot more autoimmune issues out there now.
Way more.
And it's probably because of our environment and
way more.
A lot of things in food with additives and things like that. So there's a lot of good information out there.
So for me personally, I can talk about this, by the way, for literally hours, this specific thing. But for me personally, the environment, I didn't realize played a huge part in my own toxicity and my own, wellness. And one of those things was I had mercury fillings. I had silver fillings.
Oh, right.
And so that actually added to my toxicity so much that I know it played a part in my autoimmune, because when I got them taken out, a lot of things changed for me.
Wow, mercury fillings.
Uh-huh.
Was that typical? I mean, you're a man of what,
45
years old, and so when you were adolescent, probably you got some fillings.
A few, yeah.
And I've got them. Did they always use mercury in those days, or was it?
If it's silver, it's half mercury.
Really?
Yep. And I didn't know this. I had no idea. And the thing is what I didn't know also is every time you are chewing or you're, grinding your teeth, whatever you're doing, it's releasing a little bit of gas, and it goes to your brain.
No kidding.
I had no idea. And
wow.
You do this for enough years, eventually you're going to have symptoms. Eventually. It's just a matter of how.
From that mercury in your teeth.
Without a doubt. And wow. I've met so many people too. And, this is, I don't want to go too far, sure. into the weeds, but the thing is I didn't know until I did this. I had to keep looking into, I felt like I was toxic. Because I was doing different protocols like sauna and different things. And I'm like, I don't feel well when I do this. What's going on? And fasting, I was feeling sick. And why am I not feeling well? And I realized that I was toxic, and the mercury was a huge part of it. And to get them taken out, if you go to most dentists, they'll take them out without using precautions, and you can get even sicker.
Oh my!
And so, looking into a biodentist or someone who it's called the SMART protocol, and you can find this online where there's biodentists who specialize in this. They have to take classes. It is no joke. When I got them taken out, it's like from head to toe, you're covered, they're covered. Like they take huge precautions to not expose you and them to the mercury. And it makes you wonder, it's like, well, this thing's been in my mouth for 30 plus years,
and they're taking
these precautions. And so, that was one of many, but then all the toxicity in our lives, personal products and all those things, I've just dove into to try to, lessen our burden, for toxicity.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully, prayerfully, you'll be able to eat a steak again.
Ron, I'd love to have a steak with you.
Yeah, we'll do it, because I think once you get all those things taken care of, and it's keeps adding back. We're looking at a guy here who had a miraculous healing from a year and a half of anxiety, but has continued to struggle with autoimmune issues and has dug deep and to find out ways to deal with that and to cope with that. And so, God is amazing. He provides not only sometimes just miraculous healing, but he provides the tools even just right here, doesn't he? I mean, right in our grasp.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, just natural things to bring healing.
Yep.
So, Barrett, you've got a story of hope and encouragement. You've had a lot of pain in your life, and you're a survivor.
So far.
Well, you made it to 45 and you're doing good, and you're a new dad.
Yep.
Hey, you're a blessed man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so I appreciate you. Folks, if you want to listen to,
I have a couple records under my name, Barrett Johnson.
Barrett Johnson.
And then I'm writing under the name Motel Paradise.
Motel Paradise.
Yep.
And those can all be found on
anywhere
many of the streaming platforms or any of the social platforms. Barrett Johnson, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
Thanks for joining us, folks, and we'll see you next time on Real Talk. God bless you.